Hey, greetings, Hempster. Thank you for tuning in to another Hemp-episode of HempAware Radio. This is Tyler here to empower your hemposphere as usual. And I have a special guest today, Phivo Artemides of Hempo-Sapiens, and had a really great conversation with him a couple weeks back and just felt inspired by what he's doing and wanted to share his story with you guys. But Hempo-Sapiens is such a forward-thinking company at the forefront of the hemp revolution as I see it. And they're dedicated to enhancing lives and nurturing the planet through sustainable hemp-based solutions. And it was founded on the principles of sustainability, health, innovation, and Hempo-Sapiens seeks to redefine the future of industrial hemp and its applications. And they're committed to educating consumers, advocates, farmers about hemp's numerous benefits and offering a wide range of high quality services that we're going to get into here momentarily. But we're going to talk about systems and processes and market research and all the amazing benefits of hemp. We're going to get into some of the things that Hempo-Sapiens is doing specifically. But it's my honor and privilege to introduce you to my good friend, Phivo. Thank you so much for joining us on HempAware Radio.
Thank you so much, Tyler. And yeah, good to be here and good to be chatting with all your guests as well. And thank you so much for the introduction. It's cool to hear and see the word hemp being used a lot more frequently and becoming more common language. So yeah, looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. And I think it would be appropriate to maybe give a little bit about your background and kind of share your story that led you to working with hemp and serving farmers and companies that are wanting to get into this hemp industry, and maybe just share that path that led you up to making this decision to be a hemp-entrepreneur.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, my journey comes from nature, really. I think that's the philosophy that I've had, is that always nature is a fundamental principle of our well-being. So growing up in South Africa and, having specific socio-political climate here and the cultural climate here, there's a much different story that I think hemp is writing in our country here. But growing up and traveling throughout the country and seeing different communities and the way different cultures and traditions live was always a very big pause for reflection for me, because people are unfortunately, deprived of what some maybe global north countries think is basic human rights. People are deprived of access to electricity. There's very dilapidated or poor infrastructure that's set up, both soft and hard infrastructure. And people are also geographically isolated from agglomerated economies. And I kind of grew up, and traveling through the country, would always be a young kid poking my head out the window and seeing the way traditions lived and cultures lived. And I always felt in me this deep calling to want to connect people to purpose. And I think that is a bit about why I am doing what I'm doing now, is I just think it feels like such a purposeful path. And yeah, so growing up, looking at that, and also being in South Africa, there's a very, very high biodiverse, nature-driven wildlife here. It's a very hyper biodiverse country. There's a lot of different biomes. We have access to, there's a lot of megafauna, elephants, rhino, buffalo, but also a lot of different types of pollinating ecosystem agents. There's 2,755 Afrotropical bee species in Southern Africa, and a third of that exists in South Africa. So we have a large diversity of pollinating ecosystem agents and a large diversity of flora and fauna, with beautiful coastal belts of forest leading up into midland deserts and Karoo, traversing the escarpment of Drakensberg and the mountains and coming into the high veld, this pristine grassland area, and then floating down into the low veld where the Kruger National Park is, and in Mpumalanga. So it's this very diverse natural environment. And I think growing up and seeing that and having my soul enriched with experiences of wildlife and nature and people and such diverse cultures, I always felt this calling to want to connect people to nature, to economies, and trying to find that sweet nexus in between. So then, I come from an academic background. I studied a master's degree in sustainable energy efficient cities, where I looked at a thesis report which was quite bizarre. The thesis was on hemp, but I had to go speak to the university about hemp because they thought it was cannabis, and they thought, you're writing about renewable energy here, not cannabis. And I was like, well, hold on. Before I even wrote my presentation, my thesis, I had to present to the kind of head of my department, and I wrote a thesis paper on the viability of hemp agriculture to develop energy efficient materials whilst addressing agro-rural socioeconomic opportunities in the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape is a province here in South Africa that's poised for hemp because it's traditionally a cannabis growing country with a long photo period and beautiful fertile lands and a large amount of agricultural history. So I wrote that paper at a time when the world was changing in lockdown, and so was my life. I just lost my mom a few years before, and I had realized that there was this big part of me that was like, watching someone suffer and realizing that you need to help people not suffer, I think was a big calling. And my mom actually passed away from cancer, and I was trying to bring cannabis and THC and these alternative medicines to these big boardroom, rich wooden mahogany oncologists that were just prescribing chemo. And I just realized that people aren't even aware or accustomed to, these indigenous endocannabinoid systems in our body, and understanding that there's this whole world that cannabis is not just cannabis as this recreational, mind clouding consumption drug. It's a powerful, powerful medicine. And I think that's the way it was interwoven with society at large and humanity. But that was kind of a big calling for me to wake up. And in COVID, I was writing this thesis that, it's just fundamentally coming into this academic perspective on hemp and just opening up so many pathways. I think of how it connects with agroecology and how it connects with people and how it connects with industry and how it also influences government policy, but can also influence agriculture as a whole. And trying to find that sweet spot for me was so important between how it's not this large scale monoculture crop, how it can be perceived and it can be interwoven into the small scale agricultural environment.
Definitely. And to kind of dive a little deeper into the sustainable energy efficient cities concept, like what did you propose to your teachers, I guess, or in your thesis? Like how did you position hemp, and how would that fit into sustainable energy efficient cities?
Yeah, so it was a Master of Urban Studies and Sustainable Energy Efficient Cities. So I poised it on the fact that you can look at it from a product development perspective. So I think positioning it as a viable building material and as a kind of low embodied building material that you can have these great thermal regulatory properties, managing, this kind of very carbon intensive building environment that we live in. But also that most of our buildings aren't actually living ecosystems. They're not actually living buildings. And positioning hemp as hempcrete, so using the remaining shiv to actually be able to build with hemp, and whilst looking at it from a bioplastics perspective, from a textiles perspective, and then also for health. So when I kind of pitched it to the university, I was just kind of, trying to, number one, I think destigmatize it, but also showcase it as a potential for biofuel and potential to actually create a more sustainable economy at large. And in that way, it was kind of, they gave me the thumbs up and I said, okay, cool. And yeah, here I am a good, 5-6 years later, trying to completely run with this industry and create a new way of doing things.
That's very cool. So because of supporting hemp's growth, I mean, with the biodiversity and the climate, just it sounds like you guys could probably grow at least 2 or 3 crops a year. Is that an accurate statement in that region?
So I think it is regional, and I think the main thing to look at with hemp in our country specifically, and I know sometimes throughout sub-Saharan South Africa, this is how it's being poised, but how does it suit a specific bioregion? And a bioregion is where the ecosystem services start and where it has an indigenous kind of economy to be able to absorb hemp. So looking at it from a kind of how does it suit the bioregion of Mpumalanga, which is currently the province that I'm working in? It can have an opportunity to grow throughout the year. I think the major thing that might impact it is the light cycle. Hemp is obviously a very light sensitive crop, and being able to manage different light cycles and seeing if it causes pre-flowering and if it causes flowering and how much biomass you get in your winter season and how much you need to supplement it with water in a semi-arid country, which South Africa is I think a bit of the challenges and complexities around growing it maybe all year round.
Okay, so it's region specific, even within South Africa, depends on the elevation, how close you are to the ocean, maybe, or how much access you have to water and things like that. So, yeah. In terms of Hempo-Sapiens and this vision to create a company that could help support the people and the plant and the economy and kind of merging these together in nature, can you give us an idea of kind of the core mission of Hempo-Sapiens and then how that translates into the services that you're providing to farmers or businesses wanting to get into the world of hemp?
Yeah, no, I definitely can. And Hempo-Sapiens was kind of birthed out of the idea that, we're in a changing, climate already. And there is this great push and this great need to kind of change the systems around us to create a more kind of nature positive economy. And this driving force to create Hempo-Sapiens and the word Hempo-Sapiens is actually, it lies in the word, is that I believe hemp and humans have an interwoven relationship that's still to come, and that has come, from previous generations and societies. Foothills of the Himalayas came out, around the Silk Route and just merged with society. And Hempo-Sapiens, the core mission is to provide a viable market for small scale farmers to enter into a industrial hemp industry. So I firmly believe that industrial hemp is a, kind of sustainable small scale farmer crop. And I just think the market needs to mature to a point where, these economies of scale make sense. So my services have also been in a kind of a art of marrying where the industry is with what I can offer. That's why explicitly on the website, there's actually not much of a click, pay here, this is the service, because I firmly believe in like relationship building and trust building at this stage. I think that's also kind of gotten me into some of the, conversations I'm having now with people, is that I came in, and it's also my major service is actually a scoping assessment and viability assessment. So no matter where you are in the value chain, if you're a farmer, if you're a product developer, maybe even if you're a manufacturer, or if you're a logistics company or something, primarily I work with small scale farmers and with farming regions and cooperatives, but I've had multiple people throughout the value chain contact me. And essentially I ask the questions to find out, number one, what is their scope of work that they want to bring into the industry? What is their business model, and how is that poised for where the hemp industry is now? And I think, so kind of scoping assessment, a viability report, and then being able to actually ensure them that their business model, no matter where it is in the value chain, you actually have access into the market. So I get to kind of connect them with the network that I've organically grown throughout the years with, what their exact entry is, and give them this network access, give them this viability report, and also be able to, find out, what, just kind of make it a little bit more realistic for them. Like, I think there's a few companies that I've helped scale because I think I've just helped manage investor confidence, and also been able to kind of merit them with the systems that they have in place. And that's why I went from the hemp master's paper into academia, into the Chiba Academy, to start writing industrial hemp material and lecturing, because I firmly believe education's another cornerstone, exactly what you're doing here. The cornerstone of the industry is to actually create the market, the people who are in. I think it's the perception of hemp that creates the market. So I think, it's a bit of Hempo-Sapiens, just need to change systems, this want to help people live a healthier, more sustainable, and less energy intensive life and change these climate intensive industries into climate resilient industries and nature positive industries, and then providing whatever breadth of service can be offered to a large amount of these inquiries.
Right. So your main focus, it sounds like, if you were to determine a niche market that you're serving, it sounds like small scale farmers within South Africa up till this point. It sounds like you could help other regions or even other countries of farmers getting into the industry to help them with a value chain development and scoping assessment of where they want to get into the marketplace, or in that value chain where they want to enter into. You can help them determine, is this going to be profitable? Can we line up the next stage of that value chain to make sure that, if they're a farmer, are they going to be able to sell that hemp to a processor? And if they're a processor, are they going to be able to sell that product to a manufacturer? And if they're a manufacturer, are they going to be able to sell that to the end consumer? And so you're kind of able to help at each stage determine if this is going to be a viable or profitable venture before they even put up a bunch of money or put seed in the ground. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, that is pretty accurate.
Cool. So in terms of the biggest challenges or maybe struggles that your ideal customers are dealing with, we can talk, specifically about small scale farmers as it relates to hemp. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges or difficulties that they face, and how do your services kind of help bridge that gap to overcome those challenges?
It's a great question, because it touches on a lot of what's going on in South Africa. We have a very rich agricultural background, but the deprivation of access to services and access to infrastructure has caused a large amount of the small scale farmers to be neglected. There is a great book written by Wandile Seklobo saying, I think, Farmers of Two Worlds or something. And it's the duality of farmers. You have large scale monoculture farmers, and then you have the small scale traditional farmers in South Africa. And this small scale traditional farmers mostly being neglected from microcredit loans, from access to markets, access to processes. We have great policies in South Africa. We have amazing policies that have been written, but the implementation of those policies has actually led to the demise of a large amount of the small scale farmers. So essentially the challenges for hemp and farming in South Africa kind of congruent with the challenges that small scale farmers face in their entirety. It's access to quality, accessible and affordable inputs. So access to seed, access to, healthy regenerative input fertilizers. Most traditional farmers in different communities around South Africa are using NPKs that, synthetic chemical NPKs that kind of immediately, destroy the natural health and organic matter in the soil. And that soil health very much informs our health, and also doing traditional farming methods like a lot of tillage, a lot of not cover cropping, and so on. And then also just lack of access to processing. So a large amount of food doesn't go through a beneficiation stage. So you'll have your tomatoes and the farmer will take the tomatoes to the market. And that touches on the next point, is also lack of access to market. A large amount of farmers will grow and sell their crops themselves. The farmer is now the farmer and it's the seller. So how I position hemp with the clients, with the people, with the communities I'm working in now is hemp is an agroecologically restorative crop. So agroecology as a principle, as a whole, touches on how it relates to humans, how it relates to nature, and how it relates to the economy. And you can look at the three different aspects and you can magnify those out to be 10 different, subsectors each. But basically hemp interacts with, let's say people in the way that it helps also these socio-cultural ties. It helps people's relationships with nature. And at the same time, it also helps people get a more closer relationship with their farming environment. And then looking at it with nature, obviously through its bioremediation, its carbon sequestration, and it having an ability to be a great crop rotator. And then with some of the pollen here in South Africa, looking at it as a pollen abundance for the pollinating ecosystem agents here at a time of pollen scarcity. And then obviously its relationship with the economy is huge about the bioeconomy. So looking at it as an input for, like we've mentioned, all these low-tech, mid-tech, and high-tech applications, hempcrete, food, non-woven textiles, rope, bioplastics, and so on, and looking at biofuels and all these graphene and microcrystalline cellulose. So how I combat and how I work with the community, combat the challenges, is to try to address the traditional challenges around inputs, around beneficiation, and access to a processing center, and then at the same time connecting them to a market. So, I mean, I am very much focusing on one specific bioregion right now, and that's in Mpumalanga in Bushbuck Ridge, in a beautiful area called the New Forest Irrigation Scheme, which is mostly Shangaan, but it's also got Sutu and Tonga. And people there, it's about a 540 hectare region, making up about 500 different farmers of a hectare each. And they share land, and sometimes it's co-owned and works under a system called the permission to occupy land, which is given by the king. And then there is some privately owned land, but essentially we're looking at integrating a regenerative agricultural value chain, at the same time looking at industrial hemp as a crop rotator to make it into building materials and food. So I'm trying to localize inputs, trying for farmers to make their own inputs as well, localizing seed. So there can be some farmers making seedlings, so it decreases the price. And then looking at beneficiation of all the foods, taking your tomatoes into tomato sauce, as well at the same time looking at hemp and how you beneficiate that into an accessible building material and a dual purpose variety to be grown for grain as well as for shiv.
Fantastic. So would you say the big and being able to turn that harvested hemp into finished products, or where would you say that biggest gap is right now?
I think the biggest gap is actually around some of I would say there's two big gaps. Oh, I would say there's three. The one is the genetics, having stable genetics. And then actually the processor, the access to decorticator or somewhere that can process biomass. And then it's more around the market demand. I think the market is still price sensitive in South Africa, but also there's a kind of like, and it's very strange for me. We're in the converted here, we're the converted choir here, but I think people still very much stigmatize a hemp product because they see a leaf structure and they completely conflate it with a recreational, smokable flower. And I think the market is still loosening up to the fact that you can build out of hemp, loosening up to the fact that you can eat hemp seeds. So on a B2C basis, the consumer, when they go into the store, why would they buy hemp seeds versus peanuts or hemp oil versus olive oil? Even if it's 5 Rand difference, I think there's still a association, maybe even like a deeper human association to understanding this isn't cannabis or high THC cannabis grown for flour. And then, I think taking 2 steps back to the genetics, we haven't really had a large amount of adaptation trials. There have been some adaptation trials in South Africa in different regions, but we have a very different climate here. Some areas are subtropical, some areas are inland, and different soil and different agronomic practices and different environmental conditions kind of inform the overall plant vigor and growth of the plant. So I think, and then the processing is just making sure it's geographically within proximity to move the hemp biomass. It's a very lightweight, large volume commodity. So you can have a 33-ton truck, but you'll only fill it up with about 3 to 4 tons of hemp. And that's because of its kind of large volume and lightweight. So making sure the processing centers within geographical proximity to a farming valley or region in order to minimize those kind of business costs for the farmer.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it sounds like pretty much the entire supply chain has its own issues and opportunities to innovate and educate and kind of create that pull from the consumers to be like, hey, we want this product, and get rid of the hypnosis, as I call it, where we're still operating on the reefer madness subconscious beliefs about what this plant is and its association to the psychoactive cannabis varieties. But just to get an idea of South Africa and what current products are on the market, like can people go into a local grocery store or health food store and purchase hemp seed oil or hemp hearts or whole hemp seeds? Like, what products are currently on the market at the moment in South Africa when it comes to hemp products, smokable or non-smokable?
Yeah, so I think looking at industrial hemp products, there is an amazing store here that I nearly buy everything from, but it's called Hemporium. Yeah, so he's actually just down the road here, and
Nice.
I have most of the cupboard is filled with hemp clothes from Emporium, and they also have locally made hemp shampoo and soaps, but that is very much let's say, one of the pioneers of the hemp like market that specializes just in hemp. There are other companies who are making or selling hemp clothes, but none of that hemp is grown locally, and none of that hemp is beneficiated locally. So a large amount of it is imported hemp textiles from China. So the hemp products you can get in the masses at, let's say, the most common stores are your hemp seeds and your hemp powder. And that's for food. And that's also in niche places. We kind of have different pharmacy stores and sometimes your little bit more bespoke stores selling hemp seeds for food and hemp flour and hemp oil. And then also looking at an amazing company as Afrimat Hemp. Afrimat Hemp is a kind of pioneer and first to market in the building industry of industrial hempcrete in South Africa. And they've kind of, just a couple streets away, there's the 12-story hempcrete building in South Africa here on Harrington Street. And then there's Tony's house, I think, in Scarborough that's made out of hemp. So hemp as a building material can be bought here for bricks. Hemp food can be bought here, and hemp protein powder, and then also hemp clothing can be bought here. But it is not common hemp clothing, and hemp seeds also aren't in the wider, like your big supermarket stores.
And boutique artisan shops.
Yeah, kind of that space, and a bit of pharmacies that are also around the country. But yeah, they definitely sell it to specific target markets here.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I kind of shifting gears and getting into the marketing side of things.
Yeah, cool.
Our listeners are young entrepreneurs or seasoned hemp-entrepreneurs that own their own businesses, and they're constantly trying to innovate and get in front of the right audience. I'm curious what sort of advice that you might have for aspiring entrepreneurs that are either looking to enter into the industry or maybe they've been in the industry, and that could be two different bits of advice. But what advice would you give to the hemp entrepreneurs out there to enter into this world or optimize what they're currently doing when it comes to their marketing and finding the right customers?
I have a feeling this is also a little bit more your space. But I think the main thing with hemp is it is almost a passion for profit place. I think if you look at hemp a lot for profit, the industry naturally like kind of fleshes out a lot of that. So it's a very unique space to be in. So I think finding your niche and finding somewhere that you're leading with passion into the space where it doesn't feel like work, it feels like purpose. I think that is a place where you'll feel like you can expand and have this expansive feeling. As soon as it feels like it's contracting and you have to be confined to it, then it's not, I think, the right space to be in. And getting in front of your target market share is also, doing a lot of just free talks, webinars, putting yourself out there in terms of trying to meet people and network with demand sides and trying to find out, where is the demand? Because people's target markets are also so different. If I'm a wholesale manufacturer, my target market is businesses. So running educational campaigns to people that can resell my product is super important. So for example, if I'm a hemp seed company, I want to go to a large amount of the supermarkets, your Woolworths, your Spars, your Pick and Pays. These are some of the supermarkets here. And say to them, this is a highly nutritious, beneficial, polyunsaturated fat kind of plant, and it's great for babies and it's great for people and it tastes good. And, here's a product that we've fortified, hemp seed into, and working with that consumer as being a business. And then your private consumer selling directly to the people on the ground is trying to also find out, what are the existing purchasing powers in South Africa, or in your region. I know in South Africa, it's a very price sensitive market. And there's only specific people that are able to afford these upper echelon goods. So how do you make sure that your price sensitivity meets an accessible market? And what does the advertising people need to see to destigmatize hemp? So instead of showing a leaf and kind of showing it as being this sometimes cannabis, high THC cannabis advertising, or brands like show it as, this type of fun and it's cool to get high, which it isn't a bad thing, but to position it as being a cool thing also creates the wrong perception. So also positioning hemp as this not a kind of not a cannabis product, positioning it as a health food product, as a great durable shirt product, and doing all the marketing for a great shirt as opposed to saying it's made from hemp. Just tell the consumer why the shirt is great, and then they'll find out why it's great is when they put it on or they read the label. Oh, it's made out of hemp. And I think using different keywords to actually say what the product is and why it's important versus saying it's hemp, it can do, rather saying, it's great protein and it's made of hemp. Yeah. I think that's a different way to just change the perception of what we're trying to do here as well. We're trying to change industries, so people's perceptions of it being a narcotic plant or a psychoactive plant also needs to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard the phrase perception is reality. How we perceive things is how they are to us. And so to reiterate what you said, I got three things out of that were really important. Number one was really understand your niche. Like, who are you targeting? What is their income bracket? And compared to the product that you're offering, and so that you can properly price those products. But also you said using keywords and understanding their language so that you can get into their hearts and into their minds by speaking the language that they speak. And then third, really putting hemp, at least the word hemp, on the background, kind of let that be a subtle undertone rather than being a blatant hemp leaf, or using hemp as the reason why people should buy the product, but rather focus on the benefits that hemp provides. So the sustainability aspects, the recyclability, the agricultural benefits, all of the ancillary benefits that come with them choosing hemp rather than choosing hemp directly. I think were kind of those three things that I grasped out of what you just shared there. Very insightful. They say if you try to market to everyone, you end up marketing to no one. So the more specific you are about who you serve is going to be for you to make sales. And you said one other thing that I want to reiterate, which was providing content, getting out there, educating people, doing live webinars, going to live events, networking, giving out maybe free brochures or pamphlets or educational materials. And what we referred to that is value in advanced. And if you're putting goodwill into the marketplace, people are going to recognize that, and they're going to just be drawn to you automatically. You're not going to have to do any hard selling or try to convince anybody of anything, and educating and providing that value in advanced. So those are really great insights. And just to kind of wrap it up here, and if you were standing on a world stage and you had the opportunity to share a message with every human being on the planet, what would you want them to know?
Nature is connected with everything, and we are nature. We must live in harmony with nature and our inner nature to reharmonize our systems and reharmonize our soul with Earth.
Very well said. Yeah, it's one big giant being, and we're a part of it. We're like cells in the body of nature. That's beautiful.
And I think hemp is this catalytic crop to open us back up into understanding nature is already serving us and holding us so gently, and it has been supporting us so much, and it is in abundance. And I think hemp is just one of the many tools that I think is going to help humanity reshape itself to live in harmony again with Earth. So it is a tool that challenges so many people, because it's so hard to marry the idea of this plant building buildings and having clothes and making food and cleaning the soil. And it is about unlocking and realizing and remagnifying nature as the solution, as the strategy to reshape and remold us back into being in harmony. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for creating a platform to share and tell stories again. I think as humanity, we forgot about storytelling. So I think listening to everyone's stories is always insightful and always has messages for everyone in there. So thank you for making this a part of your journey and sharing your story as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. Where can our listeners find you and get a hold of you on the socials and your website and get involved with what you're doing? And if you have any else that you wanted to share, any last thoughts for our listeners, the floor is yours.
Oh, thanks, Tyler. And I'm on LinkedIn, just my name, Phivo Archimedes. I haven't found another Phivo Archimedes on LinkedIn just yet. So I got that covered. But on LinkedIn, and then also through my website. And on my website and LinkedIn is all my contact details. I've been on other webinars and, written different things. But I think to anyone out there who's interested, we're building an industrial hemp industry here in South Africa. And I'm sitting in a region that's building hemp, and I just so coincidentally have this document here, which is the industrial hemp scope for the new forest irrigation scheme. And this is a document that scopes out the viability, scopes out the project, and tries to build in line with industry standards and work on small scale farmers, with hemp being a agroecologically restorative crop. So anyone who's interested to connect, anyone who's interested in the industry here in South Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, I'm open to exploring and discovering the art of the possible and working together, I think, to kind of bring this plant as not an alternative crop, but as a mainstream crop that can assist people, nature, and economies.
Absolutely. So your website is hempo-sapiens.com, correct?
Yes.
Nice.
Indeed.
Awesome, man. Well, you're doing such great work, and it's an honor to be shoulder to shoulder with you on this movement and creating this paradigm shift in the world that we all aim to create and experience. So I look forward to keeping the ball rolling, and you keep up the great work that you're doing. Hopefully I'll be able to come visit you there in South Africa sometime soon.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. And you must definitely come visit. It'll be great.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into another Hemp episode. This is your Hemp-entrepreneurial host, Tyler Hemp. If you're interested in getting a marketing or website audit, just go to HempAware.com, and we're happy to give you a complimentary walkthrough and let you know some things that you can do to improve your website. Or email us, support@HempAware.com, and let us know who you want us to have on the show or what you want us to cover next. Have a hempsational day, everyone.